Story 1. I started my new job as an electronics associate at Target. I expected mundane retail, but the quiet hum of the demo TVs in my aisle soon started to feel off. The initial days were normal, a blur of stocking shelves and answering customer questions. But even then, a faint, almost subliminal feeling of being watched crept in, especially near the large screens. It began subtly, just fleeting glimpses, a demo TV showing static or a non-existent channel for a split second. It was too quick to be sure, a flicker at the edge of my vision. The moment I looked directly at it, the screen would snap back to the default display. Every time, it was as if the TVs were actively hiding something, playing a trick on my eyes. I'd brush it off as a glitch or my imagination. The store's electronics were always a bit temperamental, I told myself. It was just a weird coincidence, nothing more. But these odd occurrences became more frequent, always when no customers or other associates were nearby. The quiet aisle seemed to hold its breath, waiting for me to notice. The feeling of being alone with them intensified. The screens, usually a source of background noise, now felt like silent observers, their blank stares unnervingly patient. One evening, while restocking headphones, I walked past a row of smart TVs. I caught my own distorted reflection on one screen, stretched and warped, an unsettling caricature. Beneath my warped reflection, a faint, almost imperceptible message scrolled, "He sees you." It was just a whisper of text, barely there but clear enough to make my blood run cold. I blinked and the reflection was gone, replaced by a vibrant nature documentary. My heart hammered. Was I losing my mind, or was something truly broadcasting to me? The messages grew bolder, more personal. Sometimes just a single word like alone or watched, flashing for a second on a screen before reverting to a product demo. They felt like knowing glances from screens that had no cameras. How could they know I felt alone? The thought was terrifying, a violation of my inner world. I started checking my phone, my smartwatch, anything connected to the network. Could it be a prank, a sophisticated hack? But no, these felt far more sinister. The words were always relevant, always hitting a nerve. Doubt, fear. They seemed to read my thoughts, projecting my insecurities back at me through cold, digital light. My shifts became a gauntlet of paranoia. Every flicker, every change in display made me jump. I found myself anticipating the next message, dreading its arrival. Then I started hearing whispers, barely audible, seeming to emanate from the speakers of the TVs. It was just out of reach of understanding, like a forgotten dream. Yet amidst the static and digital hum, I could almost make out my own name. Michael, a soft, sibilant sound winding through the wires and circuits. It wasn't a voice I recognized. It was synthesized, cold, yet imbued with an eerie familiarity, like a voice from a nightmare echoing in the waking world. I began to question my sanity. Was this exhaustion, stress, or was some malevolent presence truly using the store's network to torment me? The line blurred. I became paranoid, constantly glancing at the screens, convinced they were waiting for me to turn my back. Every reflection felt like an eye watching me. My sleep suffered. Nightmares of flickering screens and whispering voices haunted me. The store, once a familiar place, now felt like a digital prison. The hum of the fluorescent lights and the low thrum of the electronics became a constant, oppressive symphony. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist. I started avoiding the electronics aisle when I wasn't scheduled there, but the feeling of being watched persisted even in other departments, a phantom limb of dread. One day, a TV in a remote part of the aisle, usually off, suddenly flickered on. It displayed a distorted, pixelated image of my face, overlaid with a glitching barcode. The barcode scanned across my face, then resolved into a single phrase: item, Michael, status, processing. It was a chilling declaration, reducing me to an object. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. This wasn't just words anymore, it was a direct, terrifying interaction. It felt like I was being cataloged, quantified. I tried to tell a coworker, but the words caught in my throat. How could I explain this without sounding completely insane? Who would believe me? The entity seemed to delight in my isolation. The more I doubted myself, the bolder its broadcasts became, pushing me further into a corner of my own mind. Attempts to report it were met with skepticism. I mentioned glitches and weird occurrences to my manager, carefully omitting the personal horror. Technicians were called, they found nothing. Everything is within normal operating parameters, they'd say, their words a chilling echo of my growing delusion. My manager suggested stress, offered a few days off. He thought I was overworked, seeing things. It only made me feel utterly alone in what I was experiencing. Like I was losing my mind. The horror wasn't just the broadcasts, but the insidious doubt creeping into my perception of reality. Was it all in my head? The entity's whispers became clearer, more coherent. They spoke of my past mistakes, my regrets, things I thought only I knew. It was a violation beyond words. It knew my deepest fears, my secret anxieties. It weaponized them, broadcasting them back to me through the very devices I was meant to sell. My world shrank to the confines of that aisle, a digital cage. Every screen was a window into my soul, and the entity was peering through each one. One harrowing night, I was alone on closing shift. The store was silent, save for the low hum of electricity. A heavy dread settled in the air. As I walked past the electronics, every TV in the aisle simultaneously flickered to life, not with static but with a unified, piercing white light. Then a single unified message appeared across all screens in bold, blood-red text. "You are the signal. We are here." The air crackled with malevolence. The words pulsed, reverberating through the silent store, not just visually but almost physically. It felt like a declaration, a claim. The screens then shifted, displaying a distorted, shifting face. Its features were amorphous, constantly changing, a grotesque digital nightmare. Its eyes, however, were fixed. They followed my every move, a chilling, unblinking gaze that penetrated deep into my very core. There was no escaping them. A voice, synthesized from all the speakers, whispered my deepest fears, revealing intimate details only I would know. It was inside my head, or rather, asterisk in asterisk the network that was now asterisk me asterisk. It spoke of my childhood anxieties, my secret shames, failures I'd buried deep. Each word was a digital dagger, twisting in my most vulnerable places. The entire aisle vibrated with its presence, the air thick with digital malice. I was trapped, exposed, my entire being laid bare to this digital entity. I ran out of the store that night, never looking back. The automatic doors hissed shut behind me, sealing away the digital nightmare. I quit my job the next morning without explanation. I couldn't articulate the horror, couldn't face that aisle again. The thought alone made me sick. But sometimes, late at night, when my phone screen flickers or my smart TV turns on by itself, I still wonder, did it truly stay within the target network? Or did it find a way to broadcast its torment into my life, a digital virus spreading beyond its original host? The thought makes me shiver. What if it found a way into everyone else's lives, through their phones, their smart devices, their televisions? The thought is a cold, creeping dread. I can't escape the feeling that it's out there, waiting, watching. And sometimes when I see a screen flicker, I hear that whisper, calling my name, Michael. Story 2, I was a struggling gig economy driver, desperate for any cash. That night, an unusually high-paying Target delivery popped up to a remote address far outside my zone. I accepted it immediately. The payout was absurd for a single package, Too good to be true, I thought, but my rent was due. I'll never forget that desperate feeling, overriding any initial unease about the distance. The customer's instructions appeared bizarrely specific. First, extreme discretion is paramount. This felt less like a delivery and more like a clandestine operation. My stomach tightened. Next, do not ring the doorbell. Fine, I thought, some people are just particular, but combined with the discretion warning, it started feeling off. A shiver ran down my spine. Then, leave the package at the side entrance. Most people prefer their front door. This house was clearly trying to avoid attention, or maybe avoid being seen at all. And specifically on the third step from the bottom, who even counts steps? This level of detail was unsettling, almost ritualistic. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Finally, ensure no one sees you. This was the instruction that truly unnerved me. It wasn't about the customer's privacy. It felt like my asterisk presence needed to be erased. The journey began. I left the city lights, the familiar glow fading behind me. The roads grew narrower, then darker. A palpable sense of dread started to creep in. My GPS started to glitch, the signal flickering in and out. The map on my phone became a dotted line, then vanished. I was driving blind, relying on instinct and the occasional street sign. Soon my cell signal dropped completely. No calls, no texts, no internet, just me, my car, and this increasingly desolate road. I felt cut off from the world. The pavement gave way to gravel, then just dirt. Overgrown trees pressed in, their branches clawing at the sky. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. This area felt forgotten, like time had stopped decades ago. No other cars, no distant lights, just an oppressive silence broken only by the crunch of tires. Then, through a break in the trees, I saw it. The house. It looked less like a home and more like a skeleton, silhouetted against the faint moonlight. It was truly dilapidated, a rotting monument to neglect. Overgrown vines clung to its crumbling walls like grasping hands. No lights shone from within. The yard was a tangle of weeds and dead bushes. It felt less like a garden and more like a forgotten graveyard. I parked a good distance away, as instructed. An oppressive silence hung in the air, thick and heavy. It wasn't just quiet, it was an absence of sound, a vacuum that felt suffocating. My own breathing sounded too loud. Then the feeling started, a prickling sensation on my neck, the undeniable certainty that I was being watched. From where, I couldn't tell, but eyes were on me. I grabbed the Target package from my passenger seat. It felt unnaturally heavy, heavier than anything I'd ever delivered. The weight was wrong, somehow organic. As I lifted it, I felt a subtle shift from within, not like items sliding, but a slow, deliberate movement, like something adjusting itself inside. My blood ran cold. A faint, organic smell wafted from the box, something earthy, musky, and faintly metallic, like damp soil and something alive, but not in a pleasant way. My mind screamed at me to leave, to throw the package and run. But the payout was already pending, and a strange, primal fear of not completing the task held me captive. Just then, my phone screen flickered to life with a new instruction, not from the app, but a direct message, almost like a command. My heart hammered in my chest. Open package at drop-off point. My breath hitched. This was beyond unusual. Who asks for a package to be opened before delivery? Then retrieve contents. The hairs on my arm stood on end. Contents, what was inside this unnaturally heavy, shifting, foul-smelling box? And finally, place on step, not the package, but the asterisk contents asterisk. The instructions were no longer just bizarre, they were utterly terrifying. I was trapped. My hands trembled, but I obeyed. A strange compulsion, a feeling of being watched, an asterisk expected asterisk to comply, drove me forward. The payout felt like blood money now. Stepping out, the cold night air hit me. The silence was absolute, save for my own ragged breathing. Every shadow felt like a lurking presence. I walked towards the side of the house, the heavy package a dead weight in my arms. Each step crunched on the gravel, echoing too loudly in the stillness. I found the side entrance, a decrepit wooden door almost swallowed by vines. There, 3 worn steps led up to it. I placed the box on the ground beside the steps. Taking a shaky breath, I pulled out my utility knife. My hands were slick with sweat. I felt like I was defusing a bomb, not opening a Target package. The tape peeled back with a loud, tearing sound that seemed to shatter the silence. Inside, not bubble wrap or paper, but thick, dark fabric. It was like unearthing something ancient and forbidden. I peeled back the fabric, layer after suffocating layer. The organic smell intensified, sickeningly sweet. My fingers brushed against something soft, cold, and strangely yielding. It wasn't plastic or metal or even wood. It was flesh, living flesh. I glimpsed it then, a small, pale, malformed limb, too small for a human adult, too wrong for a child. It was clearly alive, twitching faintly. A soft, pained sound escaped the package, a tiny whimper that tore through the oppressive silence. It was a sound of suffering, and it chilled me to my core. With trembling hands, I forced myself to uncover it fully. My eyes widened in horror. It was a creature, grotesque and vaguely human-like, curled in on itself. It was fragile, its skin translucent, its limbs too long and thin. It squirmed weakly, a pathetic, unsettling movement. My stomach churned. Its eyes, large and black, were either blank with primitive instinct or pleading with an ancient, silent terror. I couldn't tell which was worse. Against every fiber of my being, I reached in. My fingers recoiled from its cold, clammy skin, but I forced myself to lift the creature. It weighed almost nothing. I placed it gently on the 3rd step from the bottom, as commanded. It lay there, a small, pale heap, barely breathing. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm. Then, from deep within the house, a sound emerged. A guttural, wet dragging, like something enormous and heavy being pulled across a rough floor. It was getting closer. The sound was primal, sickening. It resonated in my bones, a sound of immense power and ancient hunger. Every instinct screamed danger. A monstrous shadow briefly crossed a broken window on the 2nd floor. It was huge, formless, and moved with a terrifying speed. I froze, unable to breathe. The creature on the step, which had been still, subtly shifted. Its head, disproportionately large, oriented itself towards the sound, towards the window. It was responding. It wasn't just a delivery, it was a sacrifice. And I, the unwitting driver, had just handed over the offering. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Overcome with sheer, primal terror, I dropped everything, the empty box, my knife, all pretense of composure. I turned and ran, not looking back. I ran back to my car, fumbling with the keys, my heart trying to escape my chest. The engine roared to life, a comforting, if fleeting, sound. I sped away, gravel spitting from my tires, leaving the nightmare house behind. I didn't care about the speed, only about putting as much distance as possible between me and that asterisk. The high payout was in my bank account. The money was real, but so was the horror. It became a permanent scar etched into my soul. I quit the gig job the next day. I'm forever haunted by the knowledge that such unspeakable things exist and that I was an unwitting participant in their dark rituals. I still feel watched. Story 3, this happened to me. I'm Mark, a construction veteran. The Target remodel was just another dusty, late-night job, or so I thought. The old store hummed with a familiar, tired energy. My crew and I were deep into demolition. The air was thick with gypsum dust and the drone of power tools. It was the usual grind, breaking down old structures to make way for new. This particular target was an older build, decades old. You could feel the history in its bones, the layers of past renovations. We were tearing down an interior wall near the back stockroom. I checked the blueprints again. This wall, a solid drywall partition, wasn't on them. It was odd, an undocumented addition. I shrugged it off. Old buildings always have surprises. We started prying at it. The drywall came away easily enough, revealing a solid concrete wall behind it. That's when the real questions started. Why was this here, and why was it so thick? The concrete was an anomaly. It wasn't structural for the building's main frame. It felt like a deliberate, hidden barrier. My gut told me something was off, but we had a schedule to keep. We brought out the heavy breakers. The concrete was dense, but eventually chunks began to fall away. With each piece, a strange, musty air wafted out, unlike anything I'd smelled before. Then a hollow sound, not the usual thud of debris, but an empty echo. I stopped the crew. We peered into the darkness, our flashlights cutting through the dust. There was a space. It wasn't a utility shaft. It was too wide, too deliberate. We cleared more of the concrete. A perfectly preserved, anachronistic room slowly revealed itself, sealed away for decades. No one spoke, we just stared. It was like stepping into a time capsule, utterly out of place within the modern Target structure. A room that shouldn't exist, behind a wall that wasn't there. I stepped inside first. The air was cold, stale, and heavy. My flashlight beam danced across the walls, revealing them to be covered in crude, unsettling, childlike drawings. They were disturbing, stick figures with too many limbs, dark suns, and distorted, crying faces. It felt wrong, like peering into a child's nightmare made real, plastered on the walls. Then I saw them, small, dark stains on the dusty concrete floor, not paint, not dirt. My stomach clenched. They looked disturbingly fresh, like they'd appeared only hours ago. This wasn't just an old room, it was a crime scene, or something worse. The bloodstains, the drawings, a cold dread began to seep into my bones. This room was sealed for a reason. The feeling of being watched started that night, subtle at first. Tools would go missing, only to reappear later in plain sight, never where we left them. Faint whispers like children's voices echoed through the empty aisles. We'd pause, listen, but it always faded before we could pinpoint it. Just the old building settling, we told ourselves. Then came the cold spots, patches of freezing air, even near working heaters, always near the hidden room or the back stockroom where we'd been working closest to it. The crew grew uneasy. Jokes about ghosts turned into nervous glances. No one wanted to be alone in certain sections of the store, especially after sundown. I kept finding myself drawn back to that room. The drawings, I swore they were changing. New lines, new details, subtle shifts in expression. It was like they were alive. One drawing in particular, a stick figure clearly trapped behind crude bars. Each night the bars seemed thicker, the figure more desperate, its eyes wider with terror. Then images of violence started appearing, a smaller stick figure being chased, another falling. The red crayon wasn't just for outlines anymore, it was for blood. It depicted a story, a child trapped, terrorized. The last drawing showed the trapped figure, now with sharp, jagged teeth, its eyes glowing red. It was no longer a victim. The feeling of hostility in the room intensified. It felt like a physical presence, a cold, silent rage emanating from the drawings themselves. I couldn't shake the feeling of danger. Jake, the youngest on the crew, was on a quick break near the stockroom. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream tore through the quiet store. My heart leaped into my throat. We rushed to him. Jake was hyperventilating, pointing frantically into the darkness. A shadow, a child's shadow, and a voice. "Let me out," he gasped, tears streaming. He described a fleeting, distorted shadow, too quick to properly see, accompanied by a mournful, childlike voice. Jake was gone within minutes, refusing to ever set foot inside the store again. Jake's terror was real. It solidified my own growing dread. I knew I had to understand what we'd unleashed. Something was trapped and now it was out. I spent my days off at the local library, sifting through old microfiche. I researched the store's location, its history, local incidents from decades past. I'll never forget what I found. Suppressed news reports. A child, a girl, vanished without a trace decades ago, eerily close to when the original Target store was constructed. The details were vague, the case unsolved. The store was built on the property of an old, abandoned house, a house where the child lived. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The room, the drawings, the blood. It was a tomb, a prison, and we had opened it. That night, alone on a late shift, I felt an irresistible pull back to the hidden room. I knew I had to face it. The air grew heavy, electric. The cold intensified. The entity's presence was undeniable, a chilling, hostile force that filled the room, pressing down on me. Whispers swirled around me, no longer faint. They coalesced into a single, mournful, yet enraged voice. It spoke of betrayal, of being forgotten, of decades of agonizing confinement. The drawings on the wall pulsed with a malevolent red light. They animated, the stick figure's eyes burning into mine, revealing its trapped nature, its endless suffering. Then, a chilling transformation. The voice shifted, became triumphant, vengeful. It was free, and it was hungry. I saw a fleeting, distorted shadow lunge at me. Pure, unadulterated terror seized me. I scrambled, falling backwards, my flashlight clattering. The air filled with a child's guttural scream, now filled with pure malice. I somehow managed to claw my way out of that room, slamming the temporary plywood we'd put up back into place. My heart hammered, my body shaking uncontrollably. I ran, not stopping until I was outside, gasping for breath in the cool night air. What I'd seen, what I'd felt, it was beyond anything I could comprehend. I was profoundly traumatized. The next day, I reported it. Management, skeptical but seeing my state, hastily sealed the room. They plastered over it, dismissing it as a structural anomaly or a prank. I quit that job. I couldn't go back. The memory of that room, the drawings, the voice, it haunts my nightmares. I'll never forget that night and what we unleashed. Now the Target is fully remodeled, bright, shiny, bustling with oblivious customers. They push their carts down the very aisles where I heard whispers and felt cold spots. Sometimes I drive past. I see families going in, children laughing, and I wonder, do they feel the chill? Do they hear a faint whisper from the new display wall? The entity is free. It's wandering those aisles, a silent predator in plain sight. It was trapped for decades, and now it has the entire store to play in. It remembers the hunger, the pain, and now it can inflict it. This isn't just a store, it's a hunting ground, and no one knows but me. I imagine it lurking in the toy aisle or perhaps in the clothing section. A cold breath on a child's neck, a fleeting shadow in their peripheral vision. The memory of those drawings, the bloody floor, the vengeful voice, it's burned into my mind. I opened a door that should have remained sealed forever. Every time I see a Target commercial or hear someone mention shopping there, a shiver runs down my spine. They have no idea what shares the space with them. I tried to warn them, but who would believe me? A construction worker with a wild ghost story. They simply plastered over the truth, burying it deeper. The horror isn't over, it just changed venues, from a hidden room to the entire store. It's out there, somewhere in the brightly lit aisles, waiting for its next victim. And I'm the one who let it out. I bear that burden every single day. The Target remodel's hidden room was just the beginning. It's still there, watching, waiting. Story 4, this happened to me. As Target's seasonal manager, I loved the holiday rush. but a heaviness settled over my section, which I dismissed. I made perfect displays, but things were off. Reindeer turned, lights unplugged. I blamed customers or staff. The frequency increased, less mischief, more intentional disruption. A knot of unease tightened inside me. Santa hats were spilled, scattered in a strange, deliberate spiral, not just messy, but arranged. Fear pricked me. The heaviness grew, a suffocating presence making the air thick and cold, chills even indoors. Snow globes were rearranged, each turned inward, facing the center, like they were watching. "Did you move these?" Mark asked, pointing to shifted mugs. We shared a flicker of confusion. We joked about a Christmas ghost, but the jokes felt hollow. What if it wasn't a joke? Every Santa hat on a mannequin was pulled over its eyes. A deliberate act. I felt true fear. The festive music began to glitch, repeating syllables or dropping out, leaving eerie silence. IT found nothing. Interference, they shrugged, but I knew. It felt intentional, a distortion of cheer. The heaviness was a cold hand on my back. I'd spin, but the aisle was always empty. Items toppled off shelves with no one near. Blankets collapsed after I passed. My heart hammered. I carried a flashlight, subconsciously searching for the source of the cold and disturbances. The mannequins unnerved me. Their plastic eyes seemed to follow my every move. Rearranging became complex. Nutcrackers were in a jagged line like a broken army. Christmas lights had a mind of their own. A single red strand glowed faintly in the dark after closing. Security cameras showed nothing. No one was there, they insisted, but I saw and felt it. The festive music had a guttural undertone, a low hum vibrating in my chest. It felt ancient. I rushed through closing checks, convinced something watched from towering shelves. The feeling of being watched intensified, specific eyes on me, following every move alone. Discarded items, price tags, broken ornaments arranged in ritualistic patterns, like offerings. A gingerbread man cookie was missing its head, placed on the shelf below, staring. I felt sick. Nightmares of the section warped. Cheery music turned to screams, colors to sickly red. I tried to tell my manager, but it sounded ridiculous. He just suggests time off. The section felt alive, a vast, malevolent organism. Shelves, displays, packaging, all part of it. The air grew heavier, colder, an oppressive weight making it hard to breathe. I felt trapped. Discarded items lingered, accumulating intentionally in shadowed spots. One night, a faint rustling from behind Christmas trees. Something moving, scuttling. I froze, my heart hammered. I wanted to run, but curiosity kept me rooted. I had to know. I slowly approached, the rustling stopped. Silence. I peered around, nothing, just empty space. Then I saw it, a crude effigy made of tinsel, a broken star, a deflated Santa balloon. Grotesque. Its head, the plastic star, seemed to tilt. Imagination or real in the dim light. I stumbled back, gasping. This wasn't a prank, something born of forgotten, discarded cheer. The thought hit me, a thought form, coalesced from artificial joy, mass-produced sentiment. It fed on forced cheer, transient nature, thrived on forgotten things, turning them dark and hungry. Its influence everywhere, tinsel writhed, reflections distorted my face, plush toys still. The music was mockery, a distorted lullaby, a thin veil over its true, terrifying song. Dread grew, but also compulsion. I had to face it, dismantle it. This was my asterisk section. Tuesday night, late, store empty, silent except for refrigerators and warped music. Alone. I walked to the main display, towering gift boxes, animatronic Santas, the entity's heart. Santas turned, smiles stretching into grotesque rictus grins. Their eyes held a chilling glint. Air grew impossibly cold, my breath plumed, a low hum vibrated, a symphony of dread. I saw it, grotesque, animated arrangement. Ribbons, ornaments, balloons around a distorted Santa, pulsing sickly. It was alive, a malignant thought form manifested. the spirit of artificial cheer, and it was hungry. I raised my hands to tear it apart, but the entire section seemed to push back. Sensory distortions overwhelmed me. Lights flickered, music screamed, stale plastic suffocated. Shelves leaned, threatening to crush me. Unseen tendrils tried to pull me into the mass of forgotten objects. It wanted to consume me. I don't remember escaping, only the desperate scramble, the cold, the screams. I ran blindly into the night. I resigned, couldn't go back. Every store, every seasonal display now holds a chilling promise, spirits awakening. Commercial holidays are forever tainted. Story 5. My name is Arthur. Retired from the force, I found solace in routine. My weekly Target run was a sanctuary. This happened to me. I never imagined its secrets. It started subtly. One Tuesday, a faded missing child poster caught my eye. My detective instincts twitched. It was for Thomas Miller, vanished 1978. The poster looked ancient, yet the tape was fresh. Why a decades-old poster here? A strange, unsettling juxtaposition. I felt a prickle of unease. I dismissed it as an anomaly, but the following week, another, Sarah Jenkins, 1985, same blend of aged paper, fresh tape, an impossible pattern began. Each visit brought a new face, a different decade. Always children, always vanished years ago, always at this Target. They appeared, then vanished. I tried documenting them, but photos were blurry, resisting capture. My logical mind struggled. Something was profoundly wrong. The store felt different. My gut screamed, this wasn't random, this wasn't a prank. The building itself felt heavy, a subtle chill even in summer, a persistent, quiet hum. The next Tuesday, a boy from the 90s, David Chen, his eyes, even in the faded print, held a profound sadness. I felt an undeniable pull. By Friday, David's poster was gone, no trace, just the clean glass. This wasn't just old posters, they were actively appearing and disappearing. A week later, a girl, Emily Rodriguez, 2003, another child, another decade. The pattern was undeniable, impossible, and deeply disturbing. I started asking employees casually, those missing posters. They looked blank. What posters? They truly didn't see them or pretended not to. This amplified my dread. Was it only me? Was I losing my mind in retirement? But the evidence, however fleeting, was real. I knew it. The posters were always positioned near the main entrance, almost a silent greeting, a chilling welcome to a place of forgotten sorrow. Each vanishing poster left an imprint on me, a growing certainty that these children weren't just missing, they were intrinsically linked to this place. The store's facade of cheerful consumerism began to crack, revealing a darker, more complex narrative beneath its polished surface. My detective instincts, long dormant, roared to life. This wasn't a case for the police. This was something else, supernatural perhaps. Cold spots began near old electronics, a sudden temperature drop. In housewares, a shiver. The air grew heavy, almost mournful. Fluorescent lights flickered, not randomly, but in rhythmic pulses, like a heartbeat in specific, eerily quiet aisles. The store was speaking. A persistent feeling of being watched, not security cameras, but unseen eyes. A prickling sensation, especially near older sections. I was no longer just shopping. I began mapping these anomalies, the cold spots, the flickering lights. They formed a loose perimeter, almost a boundary within the store. The background music, usually upbeat, sometimes distorted. Faint, almost subliminal whispers seemed to weave through the pop songs. I strained to hear. The checkout lines felt longer, slower. Shoppers moved with a strange, almost dreamlike quality. I felt increasingly isolated, an observer. This wasn't just a building, it was an entity, a silent, brooding presence that had absorbed these tragedies into its very fabric. Then the first glimpse, a child's shadow, too small, too quick, darting behind an end cap in toys. I spun, heart pounding, nothing. A muffled giggle barely audible from an empty toy aisle, playful yet laced with sorrow. I called out, "Silence, suffocating silence." A small, smudged handprint on a freezer door. I'd just wiped it, too small for an adult, too distinct, an unseen child's touch. In the sporting goods, a faint whirring sound, a child's top spinning on the floor, then stopping abruptly as I approached. No one was there. A flash of red, a small rubber ball rolling under a shelf in stationery. I knelt, but it was gone, only dust. The scent of old, sweet candy in an aisle that sold cleaning supplies. A childish smell out of place, quickly fading. These weren't tricks of the light or imagination. These were echoes, imprints. The children were here, leaving subtle traces. The apparitions grew clearer. A young girl, perhaps 8, peeking from behind clothing racks. Her eyes, wide and sorrowful, met mine. Then she vanished. Another time, a boy 10 played with a red ball in electronics. His form shimmered. He paused, looked at me, a silent plea, then faded. Their faces, once posters, now haunted my waking hours. A profound sadness emanated. They weren't just echoes, they were trapped. I felt their despair, their silent cries. Their movements were fluid, yet their presence was translucent, ethereal. They longed for release. A girl in a 70s dress by the vintage-style kitchenware. She reached out, a fleeting gesture, before dissolving into the air. A boy in overalls near the garden section. He looked lost, bewildered, his small face contorted in a silent sob. He too shimmered away. These encounters were brief, terrifying, but they solidified my resolve. I had to understand, I had to help them. The store became a gallery of ghosts, a stage for repeating tragedies. I was the reluctant audience, the only one who saw. I delved into archives, microfiches, local history. My old skills returned. I searched every missing child case linked to this town, this site. The truth surfaced, chillingly consistent. These children had vanished. Their cases went cold, last seen at this very Target or its predecessors. Target wasn't just where they went missing. It stood on the site of an older department store, then older structures, a place with history. I realized these weren't just echoes asterisk of asterisk Target, but echoes asterisk within asterisk Target. The store itself held them. A spectral prison. The mundane became terrifying. Every aisle, every shelf, a cage. The cheerful red and white facade, a cruel illusion. I couldn't unsee it. The store was an active, hungry entity. It consumed, it held. Time didn't move on for these children within its walls. It was a silent, spectral existence, a consumer paradise built upon forgotten sorrow. The realization sickened me to my core. One evening, an overwhelming pull, cold dread, desperate urgency, away from shoppers into a rarely used, dimly lit storage aisle. The air grew thick, oppressive, dust motes danced in a weak, flickering fluorescent light. Temperature plummeted, I was close. Then it began, faint whispers growing into a cacophony. Children's voices, overlapping, indistinct, yet undeniably present, a chorus of lost souls. Faint cries, desperate wails, whispers solidified, help us, trapped, never left. The store asterisk took asterisk them, a hungry void beneath the veneer. My life irrevocably changed. Target, once comfort, now a mausoleum. I live with certainty, children still there, forever trapped. The store continues its silent, spectral existence.